Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, May 29th, and this week, drivers form a union, Uber burns through tokens, and Waymo stops short. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. Exactly. And we got some good stories today, so we're going to jump right into them. First one's a big one. This is a big win for drivers. Uber and Lyft drivers have formed the first rideshare union. And this is from Reuters, and they reported, quote, the newly formed app drivers union from the Massachusetts Department of Labor Relations on Friday to represent nearly 70,000 rideshare drivers that were operating as independent contractors in the state. This vote followed a years-long nationwide battle over whether rideshare drivers should be considered independent contractors or employees entitled to benefits and wage protections. Drivers for Uber and Lyft typically did not have the right to organize under the National Labor Relations Act, which was a federal law that covers only traditional employees. Now, this union here is backed by 32BJ SEIU, which is an affiliate of the Service Employees International Union and the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. So a lot of jargon there in the union terms. But Bryant, this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is a huge win. This is the first official union.
The ability to collectively bargain for those working rideshare and in the gig economy is massive. For years and years and years, the gig companies have done everything that they can to keep drivers separate, to keep drivers atomized, meaning it's just one voice, out in the wilderness trying to get better conditions. Now the drivers can collectively work together, their voices can be collectively heard, and the companies are going to have to respond, because if they don't, there's going to be a massive number of workers who walk off the job. And that's how you make these companies provide better experiences for their workers, provide better pay, better benefits, better opportunities. There's just so many ways that the companies have held drivers down and made this job harder and harder over the years. So this is a massive win, and it's only going to benefit conditions and pay for those out in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I think what's really great about this is Uber's typical playbook previously was always sort of twofold. It was, hey, this is what drivers want. They want to be independent contractors, so that's why we don't offer all of these things. This is what drivers want. And the second was, well, this is the law, or this is what they are. And so they always were able to hide behind that as a defense when it was like, why aren't there better protections? Why isn't there better wage? All these things. That was always the two things they would kind of throw their hands up and go, well, it's not just us. Drivers have all voted for this, or, oh, this is just how the law is. We didn't make this law. But now, like you said, this is drivers coming together. 70,000, not a small number, and saying, no, we want representation, and we want to have, better everything. And it's really great to see.
Yeah. Well, and I think it comes down to a couple things. First, it's pay and it's deactivations. So those are the things that we hear all the time from drivers that continually get worse and that they feel like they've got no recourse on. So right now, there's 70,000 voices who can demand more transparency when it comes to pay, can demand higher earnings, taking a bigger slice of the pie. And then with the deactivations, when things go wrong, having a fair shot at having your case heard, at getting back on the platform with representation in due process. I mean, these things really matter in terms of drivers putting more money in their pocket and not having the rug pulled out from underneath them without any representation or any notice based on one negative complaint or whatever it may be. So I think those are going to be the two biggest issues right away. And I think we'll be hearing more and more about those issues and how the union is able to help drivers very early on when it comes to what's going on out in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I totally agree. And obviously the deactivations is huge, and that's going to be a huge safety net and win for drivers. So our second story today is an interesting one. It is combining Uber and AI. We talked about Uber with AI the last couple of weeks. Well, Uber is burning through their tokens. This is from Business Insider. And they reported, quote, in a rapid response interview released on Saturday, Uber's operating chief, Andrew McDonald, said it was becoming harder to justify AI costs within the company. He said that the Uber CTO went viral after telling the information in an April interview that Uber had already blown through its budget, its Claude Code budget for 2026. He said that based on talks with Uber's senior engineer leaders, he realized higher token usage did not translate into a proportional increase in useful customer features. He also said that the trade-off costs from AI are harder to justify because he can't draw a direct link. You know, this is wild, Bryant, for multiple reasons here. But basically, they're spending a lot of money and not getting a lot of results, and they're even cutting hiring to make way for AI that's not paying off.
Yeah, no, Uber is, I think, like a lot of other companies right now, in that they are making massive investments in AI. And for some companies, it's making a lot of sense where, you can see things tangibly get better, more efficient, things like office jobs. However, when it comes to the customer experience on the Uber app, they're not getting their money's worth, and the customers aren't seeing a benefit, yet Uber's spending all this money. And I'm wondering how this is going to look for drivers. The fact that Uber's putting all this investment into AI, not seeing a tangible benefit, does that mean that they're going to take a bigger slice of the driver's pie to try to offset that? I don't know. Is this perhaps a good sign for drivers where things like AI and autonomous vehicles, Uber's starting to get a taste of how expensive that actually could be, meaning drivers' jobs are safe for a little bit longer? I'm not really sure how to read the tea leaves here, but it's really interesting to me that Uber is acknowledging that this is expensive, acknowledging that it's not working, and being actually pretty transparent in that this has not been a success. So it's still early to see how this will play out, but I think that the news is interesting. It could go a couple different ways, and Uber's being transparent for once in terms of things not going well.
Yeah, it's true. And you made me think of something because you had just brought up about, is this going to dive into the driver's pockets and obviously showcasing AI? I believe last week we just talked about Uber is really showcasing and promoting themselves as the technology company that all these other companies, including Waymo and all the other AV companies, can use Uber as sort of this software, the Windows of AV and rideshare, if you will. They don't talk about what the percentages is, but my assumption is a large part of their pitch and selling that they can do this is the use of AI, is the use of saying, hey, we have all this data, which is true, but then we're also going to incorporate our AI into it and the workflow for it. So like we are the best, there's no doubt. And now they're saying, well, it doesn't really work that way. And so, and for those who don't know, who are watching, the way that you typically use AI is through tokens. So you pay a certain amount of money as a user, in a lower end, you pay a certain amount of money, and then you can basically use some of that bandwidth. For companies like Uber, I think their token cost was in the hundreds of millions. I think it's something substantially insane. So for them to burn through it, it's not working. They're saying they're this tech company that's going to come save the day, and then, like you said, they're weirdly being very vocal and very transparent that we got some issues here. Interesting.
Yep. We'll see where it goes.
We certainly will. And our final story, which is yet another interesting bug, if you will, a Waymo ride ended early, and it promoted Uber along the way. This is from Business Insider, and they reported, quote, this is roughly how far Schwartz said he was from his hotel in downtown San Francisco when the Waymo taxi he and his wife were riding in suddenly stopped and refused to move. The couple visited the city earlier this month. As Schwartz tried to figure out what was going on in a conversation with Waymo support, the employee on the phone said that there was a huge blockage preventing the car from reaching his hotel. Then the employee told Schwartz, you can request another ride, probably Uber or Lyft, according to a video that he posted on LinkedIn. A Waymo spokesman said that the car was halted because of a restriction placed after our operations team learned of a planned protest activity. The spokesperson did not respond when asked what protest was taking place. Waymo suggests other transportation options when cars cannot reach a passenger's destination, the company said. This is really interesting for two reasons. Obviously, one, it didn't even get to the destination. And then two, and this is where the human element comes in. When you finally get to a human, they don't have solutions for you. The solutions to go to Uber. So there's just a lot of things. There's a lot of holes here. When Waymos don't work, and I believe even Torsten brought this up when he was on a few weeks ago. It's a house of cards. Everything starts to crumble, even all the way down to calling Waymo support and what to do, what to say. So that's why I think this is a very interesting article.
Yeah, I agree with you. It highlights how far Waymo is from actually taking over rideshare. The cars themselves are having issues. We've talked about that over and over again. The technology just isn't ready. And the customer service really isn't ready either, because when there is no driver in the car, there's nobody to take charge. What is the customer service representative supposed to do when you call and say, my Waymo won't drive? I mean, I guess they can unlock the car door, they could push the button and let you out,
Right.
but they can't offer an alternative in how to get you out of that situation. Like, let's say this happened on a freeway. What is the passenger supposed to do? Sit there and try to hail another ride from the expressway? It doesn't make sense. And frankly, it puts the customer service in a position to fail, where customers, when things go wrong, are going to be frustrated. They're going to call for help. The person's going to say, I can't really help you, call another company. And it's going to leave a really bad taste in people's mouths. So I wonder if Waymo, by moving so quickly when the technology isn't ready, is actually setting themselves up for failure and resentment from a customer base that might not come back. Once they have a bad experience like that, how likely is that customer going to be to call another Waymo? I don't know that I would if I had, if I felt stranded and then also they couldn't help me. I'm not sure that I would be rushing to book again. So we see safety issues with moving too quickly. We see hazards on the roadway where cars are blocking traffic with the technology not being ready. But now we're also seeing the customer service side. And if you have that mix of ingredients, I worry that Waymo may be putting themselves in a position where they lose market share before they gain it when things go wrong.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up because in the article, Schwartz said it was the best advertisement for Uber that they could ever ask for. I mean, having Waymo tell them go get an Uber because it's going to be more consistent and get you to where you need to go is pretty much the worst thing that you can hear as a competitor. I mean, that's
sorry. It reminds me of I got a call one time from a person who had been involved in a rideshare accident. I said, "How did you get our number?" And they said, "Well, the Uber representative at the Green Light Hub told me to call Legal Rideshare because they're the ones who can help with the
Yes, I actually remember. I remember that. I mean, right? Like that is that. Look, we love that, of course, but like, what a breakdown in customer service, and also just, and not even, and like you said, it's not the customer service person's fault. They just have no protocol in place how to deal with this stuff. And so, what are they going to tell you? Stand there. They can't control the car. They can't get it. They can't, I guess remotely hail another one for you. And then they even admitted, that the engineering team or the tech side kind of put a block on that area. Okay, great, but then there was no backup, so they blocked it off in the data or their GPS. But then there's no way to go.
Right.
And so, like you said, I think you put it really well. Like they are moving. They're trying to be so aggressive at a time that it's starting to backfire on them if you're having these issues constantly. We're just, people are willing to, kind of put up with a lot for new cool technology. But as we talked about, Uber or Waymo is moving away from novelty now. Now it's people are going, okay, well, I want to take it because I need to get somewhere. And if they're not able to deliver, I don't know, you're not going to ever go back to that company. You just won't.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a tough sell to get them back. But I think we did learn a valuable lesson, which is if your Waymo fails, call an Uber. And if your Uber fails, call Legal Rideshare.
That's absolutely perfect. That's what you do. And speaking of which, that is our stories for this week. And of course, Bryant, I will give you the final say before we head into the weekend.
Yeah, before we start the weekend, we always remind everybody that legal rideshare is available for free consultations. If you're ever in an accident or injured on the roadway doing Uber, Lyft, any other sort of gig activity, we help you recover things like the cost of medical treatment, wage loss, pain and suffering, any other damage that you sustain. Time is of the essence. You want to call us before too much time passes after the accident. We'll help you set up the insurance claim and set a solid foundation for everything that you're trying to recover. LegalRideshare.com has all of our contact information, so please visit us and don't hesitate to call.
Thank you, Bryant. And as I like to say, that is the end of this week in Rideshare. See you next week.